My name is Matt Holubowski, and I'm from Montreal, or a small village just outside of Montreal called Hudson. And I'm a singer, songwriter, performer, artist, whatever.
Tell me why you chose to perform Highlands.
I chose the Highlands. What I'm trying to do every time I perform like these one-off sessions like this, I want to always do a different song, because everybody always just picks the single because it's the most popular one. But I just wanted to try them all, and it also, I don't know, it was the first one that I attempted to do without the band, and yeah.
How is it different from the album version, or when you're playing with the band?
It's completely different. Different tempo, different speed, slightly different structure. It didn't really work. I didn't want to do necessarily just the exact same thing, but play my guitar part, and everything else around is not there. So I just kind of like rewrote the song, and could have turned out like that on the record. Who knows?
Maybe there'll be an alt version one day.
Maybe.
The song itself, what is it about?
The Highlands is about, I was kind of in this phase where I wanted to create like a bit more of a surrealist landscape, something a little fantasy based, more Peter Pan than Game of Thrones kind of thing, with something a little, just something light and something pretty, and but it's also about kind of a choice. There's this choice between being swallowed up by the Loch Ness monster or jumping back out into the Highlands, and it's kind of this moment of decision where you have to decide whether you're going to have like a crazy life or a normal life. And I let myself get swallowed up by the monster every time.
You went crazy.
So yeah, I went completely crazy.
There's also a fun fact in there about a lyric that you wrote where you bring up Valhalla.
Yeah, Valhalla. So I say 4 feet in Valhalla country, which Valhalla is like a Nordic sort of like Viking kind of thing, but it's also a reverb plugin on digital production stuff, and that's actually the reverb that I use on most of the record.
So I think between your first album and your second album, you did a lot of traveling. Do you find that you write most of your stuff while you're on the road?
Yeah, I did a fair bit of traveling before I did the music, before I made my first record too. Sort of like 21, I went on this exchange in Paris with my university, and I just like never turned back, and I've just been on the road ever since, either through music or not. And I think ideas come to me more naturally when I'm on the road, but it's not so much the places as it is the stimulation. You can be stimulated by books or movies or other music, and travel is also a really inspiring thing for me. So you're always like exposed to something new, something interesting, and there's lots of material to draw from.
Did you do any traveling before writing the new album?
I did. I traveled a fair bit on tour, but it's not the same kind of traveling. It's more like a business trip. You're like hotels and restaurants and vans and lots of highways. But at the end of the tour ended in Paris, and my plan was to backpack from Paris to St. Petersburg in 2 months. And I was so burnt out that I bailed on that plan, and I rented an apartment in Kraków in Poland. I kind of went there because I was very tired, and I just needed some peace and quiet, and I felt like what better place to go get like the spirit of resilience and courage than Poland, and I lived in the Jewish ghetto, about 5-minute walk from Schindler's factory, and so everywhere I walked I was exposed to like this really interesting juxtaposition of history, a long, difficult and rich history of Poland, but also like a super cool, modern, hip town with microbreweries and third wave cafes and like stylish places. And yeah, so Krakow was like just a fun place to live in. It made me think of Montreal quite a bit, actually, just in terms of the quality of life.
Are there any songs that you wrote while you're are from Krakow?
Yeah, I wrote in Krakow. I wrote Mellifluous Flowers and Love the Impossible Ghost, the last two and most depressing songs on the record, but they're like it sort of like ends on an optimistic note and a note of acceptance, which is kind of a bit the central theme of Weird Ones. I spent the winter in Banff for 2 months writing at the Banff Center for the Arts as well. It's like a lot of the sounds and all the weirder stuff I did in Banff, because I just kind of holed up in a cabin and just made noise with like a bunch of synths and guitar pedals and stuff, and tried to figure out what I wanted it to sound like. And then specific songs, the Highlands I wrote, and actually Down the Rabbit Hole in the Highlands we wrote and recorded while at a studio outside of Paris called La Frette, which is like this old manor that was turned into a studio, and that place is wild. It's haunted for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a bit about your writing process. Do you write your lyrics before figuring out the sound, or?
I have always written the lyrics first. It's always poems and ideas and then music. And this time was the complete opposite. So it was really challenging because I'd never done that before, and I'm not necessarily like a prolific musician. I'm like self-taught, and arrangement wise, it was my first kind of foray into that. And because I finished the tour with like so little to say, I was just like, I'm not going to sing about touring. It's not really that interesting, as fun as it is. So I started just making music and just trying to put together song structures and, doing it on the guitar. And I started learning the piano, so doing it that way, and then trying to program drums and stuff, just trying a bunch of stuff I'd never done before. And then the lyrics kind of came later. So it was an interesting reversal of the process.
What made you decide to just take on all of this, like learning new instruments and all of that?
I got bored of the one I was playing. I started off playing like standard tuning guitar, and then on the last record I did a lot of like open C tunings, and then I changed that tuning a little bit, and then I got bored of the open tunings, so I was like, looking at a keyboard piano is a different way of, it's a different map of the music. But I don't play very well, but I can do, just enough chords to be able to make a song. And yeah, it was just like a desire to like improve in any way I could. Yeah.
Tell me about the band that you travel with. How did you meet everyone?
The band is amazing. They're my favorite people. I got Simon Angel on the guitar, Marianne Hull playing keys and cello, and Marc-André Landry playing the bass and a bit of bass synth, and Stéphane Bergeron playing drums. And they're awesome. We met because I had just signed with my label Audiogram, and I was playing with some friends at the time who were, good but not at that level, let's say. And when I had signed with the label, I was really green, and I asked them, any improvement that I can make, just tell me. And so they said, you should change your band, which was tough because they were my best friends. And when I told them, they basically went like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You should. And so I was kind of in this challenging mode, and I was like, get me the guitarist from Patrick Watson and the drummer from Carquois. And they're like, okay, we'll reach out. And they reached out, and they were both down. So they ended up being in the band, and the other two were recommended by them. Yeah, that's it. And then we love at first sight.
How did you get into music?
I was like an angry teenager, and I needed to like output that somehow, and I wasn't very strong or physically fit, so I couldn't do the sport thing, and I guess I just needed some sort of outlet. And at the time I was really into like heavy metal and stuff, and I just wanted to play Metallica songs. So first song I ever learned on guitar was Seek and Destroy.
Sweet. And
the second one was Master of Puppets. It took me 3 months. All I played for 3 months was Master of Puppets. My parents wanted to kill me. But I played it, and now I can't do it anymore. A lot of down picking. It's very difficult.
Right. You were aiming to get to 30 countries before you turned 30. How did that work out?
Yeah, it worked out. I hit the 30th country on my 30th birthday.
No way.
Ireland. I was in Dublin, and it was unbelievable. I was all by myself, which is all I wanted for my birthday, is to be alone. And it was great. I was just about to get on tour with Ben Folds for a couple of weeks in Europe, and the first show was in Dublin, and so I went there a few days ahead of it to just hang out. Had a couple of pints of Guinness, and walked around. It was like pretty low key. That's exactly what I wanted. I did a lot of walking. I do a lot of walking, and I show up in a new city, turn off the phone, and just like walk in any direction. And at one point, when I'm lost and tired, I open it up and I go, okay, well, this is how I get home. But I love exploring cities like that, so I can walk for 10 hours a day easily.
Have you had a chance to do that in Toronto quite a bit? It sounds like you do come back and forth between here and Montreal.
I wish that I had. I didn't. I was just saying this morning how I had no idea where I am when I'm in Toronto. Every time I come here, for some reason, it's just in and out. And I think there's something about it being like a neighboring city that just makes it less like, I could go, to Paris or Krakow or Amsterdam and spend a lot of time there. But I really like Toronto. I didn't like Toronto at first. I have to be honest, because you guys are Toronto. We're rivals. But after a few times being in Toronto, like realizing the different, all the different neighborhoods, it's a really cool city. But no, I wish I knew it more. I think I have a couple hours later to check it out.
If the Sideways crew were to come to Montreal and we were to give you a call and you're in town, where would you take us?
I guess Montreal is kind of one of those like cafes and bars cities, and restaurants. There's so much good food. So it depends what time you guys get there. What time are we talking? Like, talking a whole day thing?
Early
evening? Early evening? Okay, let's say you come like late afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, late afternoon, but you come on a Sunday during the summer, and I take you to Tams, which is on the park of Montreal. And it's basically this like giant hippie drum circle where everybody hangs out in the park, plays frisbee, smokes weed, and is just like, and there's like sword fighting and people doing like acrobat stuff, and like it's just this crazy happening and everybody goes and drinks and eats and is merry. So we go do that for a little while, and then we walk down to the plateau, which is my area. That's kind of like it was like the last neighborhood that was gentrified. So there's some really, really nice bars. Maybe we go to like Darling, a cafe bar for like a pint. There's like beautiful regal decoration. And then, maybe if you guys like smoked meat, we go to Schwartz, the classic. You have Patati Patata, which is a great place for poutine, which is obviously a must. And then that neighborhood Elsie's bar, or Elsie's I think it's called, which is a nice neighborhood bar. There's also a drag bar across the street from that one that's really cool. It's got some good drag shows. I think by then we're pretty hammered.
Yeah,
so
cool.
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What is something that you always bring with you on tour?
Not much. I really don't bring very much. It kind of made me realize how easy it is to live a minimalist life. But I started doing, because I didn't really take good care of myself on the last tour and just did too much like eating junk food, like smoked meat poutines and stuff like that, and drinking too much beer. And so I started being a little more healthy. So I think I'm going to start touring with a yoga mat. And so I can do yoga every morning. At least I have like that exercise. But other than that, I really don't have a book. I always have a book.
Cool.
But other than that,
so that's something you'll do. You'll read to pass time.
Yeah.
What's the last, the best last book that you read?
The Master and Margarita. Yeah, that was an amazing book by Mikhail Bulgakov. I think we learned how to say it this morning. That book is unbelievable. Highly recommend. It's about the devil showing up in Moscow in like early 1920s, and he just like wreaks havoc. Like completely wreaks havoc in a city that doesn't believe in God or Satan, or heaven or hell. And he comes in and he's like, oh, you don't believe in me? That's fine. And then he like cuts people's head off and like turns people into witches, and then he has like his sidekicks that are like a giant cat that talks and walks on his hind legs, and it's a weird, super hilarious, dark, philosophical. Best book I ever read, hands down. Yeah.
Awesome, sweet. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Why?
Because then I could disappear at will. I have this line in the record. It's about two paper moons. The song is called, and it's one we know and one we don't, and the small one flickers, to be seen or unseen as it please. And I wish I were that moon that could appear or disappear at will. Yeah.
Would you use your powers for good or evil?
Good, of course, and a little evil. Just. Yeah.
What is the last song you listened to? You can pull out your phone.
The last song I listened to was...
And show the phone to the camera so we know you're not lying.
God, I hope it wasn't my song. Oh, Gnossienne de Eric Satie. Yeah, can you see it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one. And then before... Yeah, I was listening to that. And then before that, this record is amazing. I just listened to it today. Late Night Tales by Niels Fromm. Good record to fall asleep to.
Give us your best dad joke.
My best dad joke. Holy crap. My grandpa used to tell this joke. He's Francophone. I don't know if I can translate this well, but... Okay, so why, when a cat eats a mouse, why does he not eat the tail?
Why?
So he could use the tail as a toothpick. This was my 85-year-old grandpa told that joke every time I saw him for like 10 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.